So, one of my videos recently, about 2 weeks ago, got quite a bit of views, and that was on the just block argument that I had seen so many times on Reddit against Raider. Well, not so much against Raider, but rooting for Raider and why his rework isn't broken, even though we all pretty much know it is. As he is the only character in the game that still has flicker, amongst many other mechanics that are downright broken and busted, but I won't get into that too much today. Today I'm going to be talking about the honor code and why I in-depth think it's Redditarded. Now, this is going to be something that's going to kind of throw a lot of people off, as I never really gave a full-blown argument on why I think the entire honor code is just bullshit. But today I'm going to be giving an in-depth argument as to why it is, and I'm going to be listing the pros and cons of the Reddit argument of the honor code. So, first off, I'm going to start off by talking about what exactly the honor code is for those who don't know or those who may be new to the game. The honor code is that little thing that you see every once in a blue moon of someone telling you that you're not supposed to gank. That's why you start separately in Brawl. You're not supposed to gank in certain game modes. Some people will say it applies to 4v4. Some people will say it only applies to Brawl. Some people will say that you're not supposed to pop revenge in a 1v1 if you were ganked before. You're not supposed to execute other people's teammates in Brawl. There's a bunch of different misconstrued ideologies that come from the honor code, and no one has really written a soul-heartedly set-in-stone honor code. And I don't think anyone could really agree on it because there's so many different ways to misinterpret it. But I'm going to go ahead and start off with the number one problem here, and that's you can't gank. Now, you'll see this a lot in Elimination, Skirmish, and Brawl, dominantly. In Dominion and 4v4s, when it comes to like Breach and Dominion, you don't really see it too much. Elimination, Skirmish, and Brawl are the main three game modes that we're going to be talking about here. In Brawl, people say that you can't gank because you and your opponent are started separately, apart from your other pair. Now, this is something that I can almost even agree with if they would have a barrier or barricade kind of stopping the two people from fighting, but they don't. You see, if they had some sort of gate that could only be opened after both pairs had won their fights, then I could at least somewhat see this part. But there are also pit maps that encourage you to start off with a real 2v2. And a real 2v2 being, it's all no holds barred, everyone starts the fight swinging like a fucking madman. That is what I'll be referring to as a real 2v2. Now, ganking is whenever you 2v1 someone. And I've noticed a lot of people with the whole honor code chivalry thing don't really seem to mind real 2v2s as much, but when it gets down to 2v1, you shouldn't gank. Now, I'm going to disagree with that here very strongly, because it is a Brawl, it is a 2v2. You have a system, albeit very useless right now, with revenge. There is a system in place to prevent this and to counter this, especially if you are a much higher tier player than the two people you're fighting, and also character choice does come into play here. But regardless of that, this is where things get really tricky to really talk about because I can get attacked from any single angle here. If I say that you shouldn't 2v1, then obviously I'm going to get attacked because I 2v1 all the time. If I say that you should 2v1, then everyone in the community is going to get pissed at me for promoting ganking. But I'm going to go ahead and speak my mind here and say that 2v1ing is something that should happen. And there's a reason for it. One, 2v1ing increases a skill gap. It forces you to react to certain things and creates a skill gap there that isn't really like any others in the game. When it comes to ganking and anti-ganking, if you do nothing but 1v1, you're going to be overall being a detriment to yourself rather than just the game itself. When you do nothing but 1v1, whether it be elimination, skirmish, brawl, however it may be, you're simply feeding into the idea that 1v1s are what, it proves this game's skill. And in my opinion, it's not. 1v1s, really show your reaction time as well as your prediction. And those are two main skills that go into this game. But when it comes to ganking and anti-ganking, I feel like that's where a lot of different skills come into play and that are very, very, very important in this game's life cycle. You see, by only doing 1v1s, you weaken yourself in the long run if you want to play a game mode like Dominion or Breach. Whereas in Brawl, if you're doing 2v1s, you at least know how to handle 2 people at one time. You know how to focus on your environment as well as the 2 people around you. And that's going to lead us to our next little thing here, and that is ledging. Is ledging dishonorable or honorable? Well, by the honor code, ledging under any circumstances, no matter what, is considered dishonorable. By pretty much everyone on Reddit from what I've seen, ledging is a big no-no, and if you do it, you're going to hell. That's pretty much what I've seen, because ledging apparently, takes no skill, no awareness, no nothing. And I'm going to go ahead and disagree with that pretty strongly. Ledging in its own is as simple as guard breaking or attacking someone near a ledge. But it's not ledging that takes the skill, it's environmental awareness that takes the skill. You see, I do also promote ledging in most of my videos, most of my content. I've always been forthright with ledging, as you can see right here in this video. I don't mind ledging or being ledged in the slightest, because if I get ledged, that's my own fault for not having that environmental awareness, and I need to improve upon that in order to not get ledged next time. A good high-tier player will never get near a ledge in that sense. You'll know your map by that time. If it's a new map, okay, no big deal, it happens. But if it's a map you've played on 100 times, you're much less likely to go near a ledge if you know your opponent's going to try to drag you there. Now, if you're trying to ledge and you know you can get that ledge, you're going to drag your opponent there. And that's sort of what a lot of this game revolves around, is outplaying your opponent and outthinking them. And that's where ganking and ledging both come into play. I'm pretty sure you can see what I'm saying here. Ganking and ledging both create a big skill gap in the community, and a lot of people really seem to dislike that because it's not fair, supposedly. And I get that. But then again, neither is this game. You see, nothing in this game is inordinately balanced, and it's not meant to be. When you have a character like Raider versus a character like Centurion being one of the lowest tier picks at this time of making this video, and Raider being one of the highest tier picks of this video, that's obviously not a balanced fight, and one person has a major advantage over the other. Whenever you see that sort of thing happen, that's going to create a skill gap. The person playing Centurion has to be massively better than the person playing Raider in order to win that, or at least know their kit much better than the person knows Raider's kit. And that's something that happens. And it creates the same sort of skill gap that ganking, anti-ganking, ledging, and not ledging does. You see, by following into the honor code bullshittery that Reddit follows, you're not only making yourself weaker to yourself, but you're making yourself weaker to your teammates. If you're trying to hold off a point, you have all 4 people on you while your teammates go and try to capture the other points, and being solely a team-based game mode, and you're playing the objective, while so your teammates instead of going to help you, you don't want to focus solely on not ledging them. You don't want to focus solely on, whenever you get that last person down, if you do manage to kill 3 of them, to not pop your revenge that you've been holding for so long. You want to win. That's the objective of the game. That's the objective of every game that's PvP based. Whether it's fair or not, you're playing the objective. You need to create that skill gap. If they're not good enough at ganking that you can anti-gank all 4 of them, then you need to use that to your advantage. You see, this is something that is pretty contradictory in some sense. Ganking in its own does take a skill. You can't just constantly keep throwing top heavies from every direction and hope to God that you kill the man you're fighting. You need to learn when to punish your ally's attack. You need to learn when to punish your opponent from attacking your ally. You need to learn when to use unblockables and when not to. You need to learn what attacks do what damage and what doesn't. There's a lot of skill that goes into ganking, and there's even more that goes into anti-ganking. You see, while anti-ganking, you need to learn when to punish all of your opponents at one time, rather than just focus one down. If you attempt to focus one opponent down while anti-ganking, while you may kill them and you may even survive the anti-gank, you're being a detriment to yourself, because if you're not target swapping, then that one person may be able to outplay you because they in fact only do duels. If you're fighting a duelist 1-to-1 and you're not someone who plays duels religiously, you will therefore create a problem for yourself, not just your team or the game mode in its whole. You need to learn when and where to punish people, when and where to do what. If your opponent has revenge, you need to learn where to pressure them and where to back off. And you also need to learn how much health you have versus how much health they have, and see if you can even survive that revenge pop in case they do push it, and decide to attack you with a max punish. You see, there's so much more that goes into this game than just the 1v1 scene, and people don't realize that. With the honor code, you're basically taking that entire thing and throwing it away and not showing that you have further skill to improve upon. You only want to max out one little thing in your skill barrier, and by doing that, you're a detriment to yourself. While being a detriment to yourself, you have multiple things that can really be fixed in your own kit. Imagine only playing one character the entire time you played For Honor and you maxed out that one character. Now, you could learn everyone else's kit by simply fighting them, but wouldn't you know their kits a little bit better by playing those other characters? Wouldn't you want to play those other characters and play with their mechanics rather than just play that one character to rep 70 and never go beyond that barrier? You see what I mean by you're a detriment to yourself. Now, while it may be fun to have a rep 70 account with only one rep 70 character and never play anyone else, but why would you want to do that? Why would you only want to have fun with one thing when there's so much more in this game that you can do? Which leads me to my second little somewhat contradictory statement here. If you want duels, go to duels. Period. If you go into Brawl, you need to expect to be ganked. If you go into any game mode, you need to expect to be ganked except for Duel. In Duel, that's the reason they don't have Revenge anymore, is so people can't cheese like that. And I say cheese very lightly, because ganking in a hole, yes, can be cheesy. There are ways to definitely do it. For example, one Shigoki going for Demon's Embrace and 3 Lawbringers going for Long Arms. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can get cheese out of that death, and I understand that. But all the same, there's a lot of ways that you can uncheese that. You can cheese them yourself. And you have so many options, so much to do with this game. You shouldn't give up on the rest of the game simply because you feel like you have the moral high ground of chivalry. You don't. The loser dies with whatever morals they have, and the winner declares the victor. But anyway, that's my video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any friends that are honor-tards, be sure to copy the link and send it to them. Be more than happy to talk with you guys in the comments about how I feel versus how this community feels. I would say it's split about 50-50 right now. Love you guys, and as always, have a good one. Peace.